Welcome to a new series about synthesizers and sound design. In the first episode, I will give you tips and tricks how to build your own punchy bass drums and basses. Furthermore, I will talk about how you have to mix the whole thing to get the maximum punch out of your speakers. Now I will first introduce myself briefly for those who don't know me yet. My name is Marcus and I'm the owner of an independent synthesizer company called Tone2.com Audio. I'm an expert in digital signal processing and sound design
and have spent the last 30 years of my life with developing audio software.
During this time, I created many well-known products that have been released under Tone2.com, but I also created synthesizers for other companies. Our products have won many awards and are used by many famous producers. If you listen to electronic music, you've heard my sounds in some of your favorite songs. And if you are familiar with music production, you have most likely come across my VST plugins as well, called Gladiator, Icarus, Vanguard, Slayer, Soros, Nemesis, Ray Blaster, Filterbank or Electra X, just to name a few. When we talk about bass, we must talk about subwoofers, because they are the speakers who manage to play back the bass frequencies. The bass frequencies are in the range from 30 Hz up to 150 Hz, and anything below 35 Hz is inaudible. This does mean that if you're doing a mix, you should keep anything that's below, let me say, 30 Hz out of this mix, because this is just moving air and wasting energy on the subwoofers, but you can't hear this range. This speaker here is for car hi-fi. It's a 50-inch long stroke subwoofer with an aluminium dust cap, and it's extremely heavy. This is an extreme speaker for car hi-fi competitions with over 2000 watts of RMS. But sadly, I managed to destroy it by connecting two digital amplifiers and using it in a sealed box, and as a result, this thing has been getting too hot, and this speaker does not longer work. It's just for decoration now. Now I will show you how to build a bass drum. In this tutorial I will use Tone2 Icarus, but those stuff I will show to you will work in most synthesizers, and those general rules, they also apply to them. So you can do this also in other products. So the first thing we have to take care when we build bass sounds is that we make sure that there is no equalizer messing up things here. This does mean you should switch all your stuff to completely linear. In this case, we will go here and switch the equalizer off, because those equalizers, they always introduce a phase shift, and this is bad, especially when you have frequencies that are in the subwoofer range. Because there, if you use some kind of low pass, high pass, whatever, the phase shift, it really is getting something that you can hear, because it introduces a delay to the signal. And we don't want to have any delay on the signal. We want to have this as tight as possible, and we want to have precision, and we want to have a punchy bass. So make sure you switch everything to linear. Don't use any kind of equalizing or filtering on it. This is one first rule I can tell. So we should switch this off, and then we first start with a scene wave. In this case, I will go through the wavetable here, and where is the scene wave? Here is the scene wave, and the scene wave only contains a single frequency. You can see it here. This is the scene wave, and if you take a look at the spectrum, you can see that there is only one one single bin here. It has no additional harmonics in it. So we got the scene wave here. And what we'll also do is that we re-trigger the phase of the scene wave every time a key is pressed. So this gives some punch. And if you want to have some additional punch, you can shift the scene wave here for 90 degrees, which gives a little click sound at the beginning of it. This is useful to have some additional kick for bass drums. And what's typical for a bass drum, that it has some pitch envelope. So we will go here and go to the auxiliary envelope. And in the matrix, we pick the auxiliary envelope and route it to oscillator 1 pitch. And then you can slightly change the shape of it. For the voices we use polyphonic 1 because we don't want that two bass drums can overlap. So if you press two keys here, those bass sounds, they don't overlap. Overlapping subwoofer frequencies is always bad, so they should alternate. So either the bass drum or the sub bass. When you write a track, try to avoid the overlapping of it. Some people tend to use compressors to avoid the frequency mess in the subwoofer frequencies, but it's always better if you avoid it from the scratch. So in this case, use just a single voice for it. Think about the subwoofer channel as a monophonic mono channel. So no stereo and just a single voice like in a monophonic synthesizer. And one reason why I prefer Icarus for creating bass drums is that it has extremely fast envelopes. So a usual synthesizer would behave like this. And what they usually do is that they ramp the envelopes, the volume envelopes, from one value to another by using linear interpolation. But Icarus can be faster. It's when you set the attack time to exactly 0, the envelope jumps right from 0 to 1, and this gives some additional kick sound here. So this is the usual common bass drum sound, and this is with the envelope directly to 0. So it has some more punch. It sounds more aggressive, more tight. And if you're more into the harder styles of electronic music, you might consider using a different waveform other than a scene wave for the bass drum you're using. So this is the bass drum with a scene wave, and now I will use the wavetable selector to choose a different waveform. Now I will show you how to build a 909 type of bass drum. So we start first with a scene wave playing bass drum here. And now we go with the sustain level downwards, so that we got some kind of exponential shape for the volume envelope. And then we add some distortion to it. The classic 909 was not a hi-fi device. It didn't play back a clean scene wave. It had some distortion in the scene wave, which resulted in the typical sound of it. And to emulate this, we will go here and use phase distortion and morph the scene wave to a saw wave. Now I will show you how to build a sub bass. To make sure that everything is consistent with your previous bass drum that you've built, you might choose the same waveform as you've used in your previous bass drum. So if it was based on some kind of square wave, use a square wave for the sub bass, or if you did use some kind of sawtooth style, keep the sawtooth style for it so that you got some consistent sound among these two alternating sounds. In our case, we will start or build a sub bass with a sawtooth. We initialize a patch with a saw, pitch it down. Then we re-trigger the phase every time we press a key. Then we switch it to monophonic because we don't want any overlapping in these frequencies. And we add filtering, but we won't use an analog filter, we will use a digital filter because of the phase shift problematic that I explained before. And because we don't want to use an analog filter, we won't use this section here. We got two options here. We can either use a digital filter here, which morphs the partials, or we can achieve this by selecting a wavetable, which morphs the partials of a sawtooth. And then we take the auxiliary envelope and drag and drop this to the waveform. Now you can use the auxiliary envelope to control the speed. And this also works for a square wave.